When people talk about social media on YouTube, it's usually about how to grow your following online, or how to do a digital detox and not do any social media instead. This is neither of those two videos. As a professional artist who needs social media to sell my art and my art teaching services, I really need these platforms to run my business. I'm also a real person who can get all the anxiety that these platforms provide us for free. I don't have to say this out loud, but working in a way where everyone can see what you are doing almost all of the time, it's not easy. I've had to navigate this path of using this tool that can be so dangerous for any creator's mental health. Over the years, I've made a ton of mistakes in how to approach social media. Because I've been doing this for so long, I thought sharing my experiences could help someone who wants to make their creative hobby their full-time job, like I have. And specifically, how to do that without being in a constant spiral of depression and stress. Because believe me, I've done those two things as well. Content creation, whether that's art or writing, is a creative process. Our creativity should be something that we enjoy, not suffer from. It's a way to express ourselves in meaningful ways, and sometimes, like in this case, art can just be silly, light and fun. It doesn't have to be that serious. But it can be challenging to find enjoyment in art sometimes. Especially when the platforms push you into creating certain kinds of content. I'm not just talking from my own experience here. By far the most prominent concern artists have when they ask me about these things is whether it's okay to post different kinds of art than what they think their audience is expecting them to make. Before I get to the action steps on how to get to some kind of balance with these things, I need to clarify that there's nothing wrong with using your skills for commercial purposes. This is, after all, my job, not my hobby. And I do love to create products for my clients. This year I've been extra lucky to work on a project that's just made for me. I love my job, and I need it to stay that way. I need to love my job. It's absolutely mandatory to create a sustainable work environment in this line of work. And with the way these algorithms work, I can't emphasize enough that the game is completely rigged against you. To make content creation in a creative job enjoyable, you really need to make changes that work for you. Because these platforms do not care about your mental health. They don't care about you, so become your own HR department before it's too late. So to keep myself in a healthy creative mode, I must also make art for myself. This gives my imagination the kind of freedom client projects they just can't have, no matter how enjoyable they might be. And because social media is my primary funnel for finding clients, that's where this personal fun work is going to be on. Otherwise, I would generate 0 sales leads. By the way, you're looking at me doing this personal fun work right now. I'm not painting this bear because someone else wants it. I want it, and more importantly, I need to paint this bear. It might be silly, but I need it. This is a need that I need to fulfill, otherwise I will simply break. But what you need to make and what people want to see, those can be sometimes very different things online. The numbers and feedback from online platforms give this idea that there's a right way to make content and a wrong way to make art. And the only measuring stick is how many likes, comments or shares you get through it. I'm not saying that I'm now somehow immune from that kind of stress. I often need help with that stuff as well. My creativity just wants me to draw bears, and sometimes I want to experiment with a thing that might teach me a new technique or open doorways for new ideas. Experiments, they can fail, and that's what makes them experiments. And because of these numbers, sometimes it's hard to give myself the freedom to fail. I know that my creativity will forgive me if I fail. New ideas will come even after my failures. But forgiving myself, that's harder. I think sharing your art is essential, even when it doesn't do well in those numbers we all care so much about. But it can also damage our ego. And to this you might say, screw your ego, man, just do you, just do those bears, it's okay. But if I've learned anything from living through the highs and lows of this roller coaster, it's that you also need to feel confident to embrace your creative ideas fully. Because art is a performance. And to do it well, you need to dance like no one is watching. Dancing just a little bit, it's not dancing. It's just doing this, like TikTok dancing. It's not real dancing. Sorry, I'm not sorry. Inspiration doesn't promise us success in any way. It just presents exciting, sometimes terrifying challenges at the end of which your art can exist for others to see. To take on these challenges, you need to actually believe there's a chance that you can do it, or grow to be the kind of artist that can. To take that action, you need confidence to even start. What erodes that confidence is how online platforms magnify all your worst insecurities. That's why I need to set clear and concrete boundaries on how I interact with social media. Because just saying don't care about any of that stuff, that's neither helpful nor even possible. A lot of you have a goal of growing your online following with everything you make. I used to have that as my only goal. Before you judge me for being shallow, that was mainly driven by my fear of losing clients in my freelance business. I mean, it's something I'm not proud of admitting, but it's true. I don't have any massive financial support network, and I was always very afraid of going broke. I think that's how most normal people feel after starting a freelance business, especially in art, but I don't know. So that fear of running out of money put a lot of pressure on the things that I publish to do well. However, if I lose the connection with my creativity and get stressed about the content that I put out, then honestly, it's not worth all the work that I'm putting in. Because I'm designing my life to be this. I can't design my life to be just about stress. For that reason, I consider myself pretty lucky how quickly that feeling of burnout and overwhelm came to me, because it forced me to either quit or change right away. And since retiring from art was never an option for me, I needed to rethink how I made content. One of the most insidious ways social media gets under your skin is the way that it makes you feel like your value is directly measured by the things that you make and how they perform. This should go without saying, but you have value even when you don't make anything. I noticed that the relationship I had built with some people put me in a position where I was just a mere machine that makes art or gives instructions on how to make art. Sometimes I even felt slightly offended when people sent me questions written in the same way that one might ask anything on Google. But then I understood that it's my own fault. I was responsible for how people talk to me simply because of the role that I had created for myself. Simply put, I had forgotten to communicate that I'm a real person too. And this is something that you can't use as a quick tip on how to get 1,000 likes on Instagram, mostly because people don't care who I am or who you are if they don't know you. And even if they know me, they might decide that I'm not the kind of person they want in their life. And that has to be okay with me. That is just the price of admission of doing this in a sustainable way. But to make that judgment whether people like me or not, they have to know me in the first place. Now, what this means in practice and how you can incorporate this into your life and in the content that you produce. Simply remind your audience what you do outside of the content that you produce. For all art content that I make, I use the 5 categories method. I've been using this ever since I made this change, and it made all the difference in the world. Also, it simplifies planning content so much that even if you don't currently have a freelance business, I recommend that you switch to this anyway. So what are the 5 categories? My content is about art, creativity, education, and living a healthy life as an artist. Those are 4 categories that appear in all of my content. But the last category, the 5th one, that is just me. What I do or who I am. Sometimes it comes across in the subject matters of what I paint, or how I talk about those pieces, or the process of making them. This is not a marketing strategy. I can see from the numbers what kind of content gets shared and what doesn't. This will likely not yield you better results when it comes to just those numbers that we are also obsessed about. However, after making this change a few years ago, it quickly and dramatically impacted my relationship with the people I meet through social media. It helped me understand the people commenting on these videos better, and I learned so much more about them individually. The same goes for Instagram. I now have actual friends through Instagram because I've gotten to know them on a deeper level after I made this change. And I think that has to do with the fact that by being honest, I allowed others to do the same around me. This doesn't mean that you should do full vlogs now. Still, for all kinds of content you're making, it's worth considering not just what value you're creating, but how it's being made. Your voice can be the defining factor in the tone of how you're delivering that information. that could also be the deciding factor why someone chooses to follow you specifically, even though there might be other creators in the same space. And in that small gap, you have just opened up a way to be yourself as a part of your content that isn't focused on draining you like a battery. Now it has to be said that I really hate it when people give advice. Just be yourself. Because that's not advice, it's not actionable. Because I think being yourself, especially online, is really freaking hard. This change doesn't happen overnight, but putting myself in my 5 content categories pushed me to learn to communicate as myself, because it was always part of the things that I was making. And the reason why I think it's worth going through this trouble is that we need to ensure that we are taking care of ourselves mentally to enjoy the full benefits of our creativity. Okay, let's talk about the scary part, failure, specifically failing in public. To fully jump into the creative process and enjoy all its benefits, we can't half-ass it. We have to fully embrace it and be willing to fail. That's the only way that we can access our creativity. When we are in that playful mode, trying new things, learning from our mistakes, and sometimes just messing around, we can tap into something magical. That's where the magic happens. Those messy results will not always grow your online presence, but I feel publishing that stuff is important too. It also brings me closer to the people I'm interacting with. Sure, I could delete 400 paintings from my gallery to give the impression that I'm a much better artist, just leaving the best ones in there, the ones that do well in numbers. But that would feel like a lie. It would feel so fake. It would also make my relationship with you feel like a lie too. Frankly, this relationship we have, that's way more important than someone else thinking that I'm a much better artist than I actually am. As an art teacher, I think that it's also essential to show the struggle. When my students encounter difficulties, I don't want them to think they're somehow alone or inadequate for having challenges with their art. In practice, it means giving myself the freedom to fail and to learn from my mistakes without judging myself. On social media, that means failing in public. It also means being kind and forgiving to myself, even when I make mistakes. Our creativity is always there to give us what we need, but we must be willing to receive it in the form that it comes to us, and sometimes that can be very messy. If you're struggling with giving yourself the freedom to fail, remember that it's just a part of this much bigger process. When you build a community that knows you, and those failures are part of that connection, they will always be there for you as well. When you look at the bigger picture, that is your life, creating a work environment that you can thrive in, not just survive, that should always be the more important goal. I know this kind of video will only appeal to a small part of my audience, but if this can help anyone overcome these difficulties, it's worth making anyway. And if you want to get to know your style, take part in this art challenge. I'll put the instructions in the description. Thank you for watching this video. I'm Mikko and I want you to take care of yourself. Bye!